Hey everybody, and welcome back to the football show. How are we doing? It's me, Mark, Kyle, and Imran. We've had a little bit of a break. We've had a bit of a winter break, I think that it would be fair to say. And we're jumping back on for this running because clearly we've got to be here for the end of this season because it's going to be a fascinating one. So you boys have been off, doing your university life, getting adjusted. How are things going? Start with you, Imran. How are things going, man, in good old Liverpool?
A busy few months, of course, but
Yes, man.
I'm excited to back on the show. A lot has happened and a lot to catch up on.
A lot has happened and a lot to catch up on. You joined the football team yet?
Not yet. It's not worth it. Five-a-side, yeah, but not back to the Sunday League yet.
Fair enough. And what about you, Kyle? How you doing, man? How's things in Huddersfield?
Pretty similar, to be fair, just like getting on with assignments and stuff like that.
Wow. So look, welcome back to the football show. And we thought, you know what, let's just push this out live this week, see how things going, and let's get things going. So you guys know how we like to do it. We like to mix up a little bit of our own League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Fantasy Premier League. So if you are on our Facebook page, we have a lot of conversations over the course of the season, and it's all about this. It's all about this fantasy league and how we're doing and pitching our wits against each other. And as you can see, top of the table there. Well, I'm not going to talk about the top half of the table because it might be a little bit embarrassing. So I might just leave it to you, Imran, because to be fair, you've been leading the charge, man. Running towards the number one spot.
Back on it again, second year in a row that I'm in a somewhat title race. Although
Listen to you.
right now I am 60 pointers risk, but that's what I was kind of in the same situation last season. So I'm hoping that I can have a strong finish to the season and pip into the title.
So you're thinking you're gonna, come from 60 points back and really go for it. You've never won it before, right?
No, it's only my second season, so yeah.
Well, look, I've been probably at it about 10, and I'm not even going to say anything. What about you, Kyle? Because you where you
They're in
done
10th.
it,
Just about in the top 10.
barely in the top 10.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but there seems to be quite a close race between like 6th and 12th in this league. Like, it changes all the time. Not that positions 6 to 12 are that important, but there's a quite interesting race there. But I mean, I think this is like my 6th or 7th season doing this league, and I think this is the furthest like the top has ever been away from the rest of the league. Like,
Oh, really?
that 100-point gap between 3rd and 4th, I don't think I've ever seen such a massive gap, especially in this stage of the season. What, like week 27 or something? Like,
Well, I have to give a shout out to sixth place Boom Shakalaka Christian Corbin there, because he made a serious point at Christmas to say, all right, I'm going for it, and he's claiming he's going to finish top 4. And to be fair to him, he's been motoring up the league over the last couple of weeks, so I can't really can't fault him. Yeah, he's been doing good. I think he was saying previously, Imran, that he just listen to what you say and just mimic it. And look, as you can see, I to be honest, in fact, I'll talk a bit more when we roll down into the individual performances. But look, I'm down in 20th. I just can't get started. I just cannot get started. But I'm surprised that some of the people who are in and around me, who are normally, trailblazing, people like Ryan Clark and Chesterfield Brown and Didier, I think they're all languishing a little bit in the bottom half. So I don't feel too bad. What's happened to Isan, by the way?
yeah,
He started very, very strong. I think 10 weeks. I think he was after game week 10. He was still top, and it's just been downhill since then. I think a few missed game weeks as well.
It was around November time. I just started seeing him in like 7th, 8th. I was like, oh, where has this gone? But it's like that gap between the top 3 that has been extending for a long, long time. Like, it's not a sudden thing. Like, the top 3 all got like 70 points in 1 week, and the rest of the league were like, nah. It's just been a thing since like December, and it's only grown. Mm-hmm. It's entertaining to watch as someone who clearly isn't involved in the title race.
Well, I'm not involved in the title race, but right at the top, we like to mix up the fantasy league with a bit of reality, and on this show we spend quite a bit of time talking about what's going on in our league, and this guy Wayne Skeet is really proven to be quite a challenger this season. I don't know if you guys have been looking for Paul Chandler. I can't find him in the league, our defending champion. he seemed to
syndrome.
Is that what it is? Well, but Wayne has been consistent. I have to say, he's every week he just seems to be
Scarily
really,
Really good.
sitting down and studying this thing very meticulously, you know.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he's paying a lot of careful attention to the teams. So, not surprised that he's leading the charge. But you guys, well, at least you anyway, Imran. You're coming. You're coming. What do you make of him though?
Oh, it's just demoralizing. You think you're having a good week, you check the league and you see red arrows because he's just got 20 more points than you somehow every single time. Even though, even in the case of he used his triple captain early in the season and didn't do very well. So I thought that in the week where everybody triple captain Salah, we'd be able to, get points ahead of him, and he still beat me in that week somehow. So he seems unstoppable at the moment.
That was crazy, man. Like I looked at that week at the end of the week, right? Because Salah got 84 points alone. Yeah. So you're like, yep, easy bag. That's an easy W from me. And then you look at I think I got the third most points that week in our league. Wayne was second. Didier got the most. And I was like, are you serious? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, he's quite strong, and he's clearly got him for the top price. So see what you can do, Imran. But I don't. To be fair, I don't always. Since we've been doing this show every week, when we talk about the positions that we finished one against the other, I am usually bringing up the rear. But funny enough, last game week, I actually came on top. So I was quite pleased about that. And 27 points. Sorry, well, 44 points, mind you, but still can't get out of position 20. And I think my big problem this season has been I made a lot of mistakes with Harry Kane. I feel I kept him too long, and then I decided 2 weeks ago, right, enough, he's got to go. Took him out, man. The guy starts scoring. He's got assists, and
I can't believe you stuck with him for that long.
Neither can I, and that's why I'm where I am in the league, because I just, and the thing is, I was listening back to what we were saying again week 4, and I said I'm going to take Salah out because I don't think he's going to do that great this season. And the guy has just been storming. So I think my mistakes really have been around Harry Kane. I bought in Saint-Maximin as well, only to realize, he's out injured for a period of time and is not going to be back for a little bit. I decided to drop Alisson because I thought premium keepers this season, he was doing okay, but then something happened after the international break and he never really came back. And it was like, I'm going to flip to Martinez. And so I've been all over the place. But anyway, I got more points than the two of you last game week. So there you go. That's my summation of where I am. So there you go, Imran.
Disappointing.
Really?
Yeah, very, because I obviously used my free hit and I thought this would be a great opportunity to at least finally leapfrog second and maybe close the gap to Wayne a bit. But once again, it just didn't perform. Especially, I think the thing that let me down the most was the captaincy. I went for Mahrez. I thought Mahrez loves the stat padding in those games. I think he likes to add the third and fourth for City in like a 5-0 win or whatever. And happens to be that I don't think he started, came off the bench in the 77th minute and then didn't really affect the game. Whereas Wayne went and captained Kane, who of course got a goal and assist.
Man, Wayne has got some inside information that nobody else has, man. I just don't know how he's doing it. I find Pep too unpredictable with these Man City players. So I
fell for the trap once again.
You've always got to be careful with him.
You just don't know what he's going to do. You're kind of hedging and thinking, he's going to be all right this week, and then suddenly you realize, he's not playing the players that you thought he should. So there you go. But then, Carl, you're bringing up the rear this week, for a change.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, like I mentioned, that race from 6th to 12th, I think everybody between 6th and 12th, apart from me last week, had Cancelo in their team, and he was one of the dream team defenders, and I was like, I can't do City plays, even though I'm sitting there with a captain Foden. But I guess my thing this year has been similar to yours, where I've had Ronaldo in my team since he joined United.
Well, that's a mistake.
Yeah, like that. He's what, like 12.5 mil. Like I guess we're both using our big money players a bit inconsistently. Like it's weird because I've still got him in my team for the Manchester derby this week, but I'm not a betting man, but I'd absolutely be willing to bet he's going to get booked this weekend. He always does. He just, you depend on him for a goal, and you look at him and he's been booked for a stupid, and it's never a decent or a smart booking. It's always an unnecessary yellow card for talking back or random violence or something like that. And it's I can't
Curtis
deal
Jones
with him.
springs to
Man.
mind when he started kicking Curtis Jones in the
Oh
in the United
gosh.
game.
But that front line that you've got there doesn't. I mean, you got. Is that Dennis?
Oh,
Dennis,
Dennis is-
Ronaldo, and Antonio. Well,
What a
Dennis is quite
player.
surprising actually.
Yeah,
We're going to talk
um,
about him in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've had Dennis for I think I've had Dennis longer than I've had Ronaldo. I was one of the first people to have
Yeah,
Dennis,
you
and it
were.
kind of disappoints me that his price hasn't gone up as much as I think it should have. Because
Right.
I think it's only 0.2 mil in the increase since like game week 6, and I think he's up there in the Golden Boot race. I think with Watford of all teams. So
Well, let's not talk about the Golden Boot race because I think we did make some claims back in game week 4 listening back. But, we talk about it in a little bit, but so let's see what happens this coming weekend then, because you know the fight goes again. So look, way back at the start of the season, we decided let's track all of these big moves and see how they go over the course of this season. I mean, overall, I would probably say it's been a remarkable flop, mostly across the board. To be fair, who you picking out there? Who you picking out then, Imran? From
I
the
think
big transfers.
It is a pretty miserable list when you look at it now. I mean, I think you could safely say that almost all of them have been underwhelming in terms of whether that's performance or for their value as well. I think the only ones that you could highlight as being worth it is maybe a bit step up for, like, for example, the Ben White, because he's been
take it.
adequate, but then
I'll
again,
take
you
it.
did pay 50 mil for him. So you got to balance that out. Has he been 50 mil good?
how much
he's
was
been-
Ramsdale?
Ramsdale, 35, I think he was. And I think Ramsdale, we said it in the show before, it was all about the confidence that he brings. So he does have his flaws. I would say he has his flaws in terms of some of his technique and some of his overconfidence sometimes. But then it just, at least the defenders trust him. And that was a massive problem when Leno was still at the club, that the defenders just weren't comfortable with playing the way Arteta wanted them to play, whereas Ramsdale has come in and instilled that confidence.
And I think when you go across, you know, all of these transfers, you probably say that Arsenal didn't do too badly actually, because they seem to have had a bit of a bounce from the two who've come in and solidified them. And you know, Ramsdale has been up there in terms of the number of clean sheets this season, competing very well. And Arsenal surprisingly haven't been conceding a lot of goals. So I think those two on the end, surprisingly, have actually been okay. But as you go through, it's just filled with disappointment. I mean,
Those middle players there. I mean, you look at Sancho for 72 mil, albeit more of a long-term investment, but still disappointing.
yeah, I won't be too hard on him, even though I had him as one of my young players of the season. But Danny Ings seemed to have a reoccurring theme with him every season. He starts, you know, very, very bright, scores some goals, and then he just goes off the ball completely or gets injured.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the same thing repeated at Villa. So had high hopes, but it just isn't happening.
I mean, Villa have got a real problem in that sense where they've got Ings and Watkins and they can't coexist together. So the manager has a big dilemma as to who to trust up front. And I think it's when one of them gets given the opportunity. I think Ings got given the opportunity in the last few games. And as you can see from the ratings there, 6.3 v Watford and a 6.3 v Brighton, it's just not good enough.
No, you know, 19 games, 4 goals and 2 assists. You would have expected to get a much better return, to be fair. But next to him, you know,
I mean,
I
you
was
can't say we
thinking
didn't see it
there,
coming.
like, didn't Ings have like 2 goals and 2 assists in our last
back in
show?
game week 4.
So in about 20 games, he's got 2 goals, which is
Yeah. But Grealish has been a huge disappointment, I feel, for Man City. And Pep seemed to be losing a little bit of confidence in him as well, because I haven't seen him recently. And the games that he's playing, he seems to be getting less and less time.
Yeah, and what that point again that we did mention this at the start. One of the predictions we got right was what is Grealish's position at City? Does anybody know?
No.
I think he's been tried at centre forward. He's been played at left wing, and in both situations he's been underwhelming. And obviously Pep still doesn't trust him.
No, he doesn't. And I think however this running goes, you know, whatever he does, he might still get a couple more goals. You never know. But he's got a long road to go, and it does seem as though the shirt is a little bit too big for him at the moment.
100%.
It feels as though the step up is quite challenging.
I mean, I love to emphasise it, but £100 million, you expect him to be on double-figure assists and double-figure goals, actually. But 2 goals from 2 assists and 17 appearances just is a bit pathetic for 100 mil.
It is, and young Willock at Newcastle is suddenly starting to find his feet again.
Yep.
You know, after the fabulous start he had last season out on loan, and he just seems now to be starting to rediscover a little bit of form, which is good for him, because I think he's a good player. And sadly we had to let him go, but he's discovering himself in Newcastle. 2 goals from 21 appearances, but I don't really think that the expectation is similar to those that we've got him alongside in this lineup.
Of course.
Especially for the club that he plays for as well.
Yeah.
We're not going to expect him to bag week after week.
I think Eddie Howe's football really suits him now that they've got a more settled midfield with Guimarães, Joe Linton, who's now a midfielder, and Willock. I think that works a lot better. You can see he's playing with more confidence, and like you said, discovering that form that he had on loan last season.
Yeah, and his numbers there, 7.4 in the last 2 games, is a example that his form is starting to turn around at the right time, because in the last show we did, Newcastle were dead and buried, to be fair, but they've really turned things around. No threat of relegation at the moment, it looks like, anyway, and that is starting to coincide with players like him coming into good form, which is great to see. Good player. I mean, we can probably do a whole show on Lukaku. Right? But to be fair, if I go back and watch back, I always said he was going to struggle at Chelsea.
Yeah.
And so said, well, we can see the example. Go on, Carl.
I didn't go on, Carl. Actually,
I mean,
that's on you.
Yeah, it's interesting because as much as I come week after week trying to back Lukaku and back his case, but
you're the only one.
I think it was we played the other day. Was it Lille in the Champions League?
Yeah.
It's one of the most fluid performances we've played in ages. And then we had that League Cup against Liverpool. Again, such a fluid performance. And I'm like, there's a commonality there that I don't want to admit, but trying, kind of forced to admit, that we look so much more fluid without Lukaku in the team. And I guess my fear at the beginning of the season was always Havertz at striker has never really been it for me. He always makes me slightly uncomfortable. Whenever I see that starting lineup, I'm like, Havertz at striker, okay. He's not a bad Cam, but at striker
he gets lucky in the big games, though, and everybody seems to be saying, "Oh, we've got Havertz, and he's going to score a goal in the big games."
Yeah. I mean, he does score in the big games, though, doesn't he? But yeah, at the end of the day, I think you've got to face the fact that Chelsea just look so much stronger and so much more fluid as a team when Lukaku isn't playing. It's a fact. I can't sit here and go, I mean, he is a quality player. He's got a good finish, and his touch is still a bit, I remember saying at the beginning of the season, this is the most complete player Lukaku has ever been, but he's still not really providing that much to the team.
No, I think there's also a little bit of a deliberate ploy, almost, it seems, in the Chelsea ranks to kind of starve him of service, and some of that seems to be coming across when you watch the games. You see him there flailing his hands in the air all the time, trying to get them to put the ball in the box, and they cut back and pass it square, and it just seems to be what's going on at Chelsea.
We've had that problem for a fair few seasons, to be fair, where we just don't get the ball in quick enough. And I think that's why, was it last season, the season before, when Mason Mount just burst out of nowhere on the wing? We're like, geez, he was... Because that was the thing we needed. We needed a player who would... He did everything. He both drove the ball himself, whether it was into the box or out to the wing. Or when getting the ball on the wing, you ping it in early. And then we had the likes of Giroud, Tammy, whoever it was, to get on the end of that. That's why we appreciated Mount when he burst on the scene. But now... we're not really getting that kind of service. I remember, obviously as a Chelsea fan, I had loads of people messaging me about that. I think it was 7 or 9 touches in one game.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, of course. Granted, I'm not going to try and defend him here, but at the same time, I think everybody is taking a little too much focus off the service side.
Yeah,
because everybody was focusing on. Yeah, everyone was like, oh, God. I watched the highlights again. After watching the game, and I was like, those 7 or 9 touches, I think 2 of them were in the final third, but no one's going to mention that because everyone's like, oh, 7 touches, 9 touches, whatever it was. And it's like, when your striker is having to come that deep. It's like the same problem that Barcelona had in Messi's final season. Like his most action areas were basically in the centre circle, yet there was no one ahead of him. But, you know.
What did you make of him when you saw him live last Sunday, Imran?
Saying that, actually, Liverpool, he was actually pretty lively. He caused
Yeah, I
quite
think he
a few
was
problems.
robbed of a goal, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
well, that's a we can do a whole discussion on VAR, couldn't we? And offside. I would argue that we were robbed of a goal as well, but yeah, there you go. But he was actually pretty lively. Then again, Chelsea were on top of us. They had control of the game at that point, and we were pretty fortunate to get it on penalties. But that's how football works. But going back to the point that Carl made, I think it is a good point to raise the issue that it could be a bit systematic that's not been in his favour. I think you could argue that Chelsea were looking to Lukaku to answer all their problems when it was a bit more fundamental than that, because we know that Chelsea are a good cup team. That's why they won the Champions League. It's because they have a really solid defence and they can hit you on the counter. But over a league season, you need to be able to constantly and consistently break down teams and score a lot of goals. And they thought that just by sticking Lukaku there, he would solve all the problems. But systematically, they need to take a step back and maybe then address those issues.
Yeah, and he looks a little bit miserable. He just seemed to look a little bit unhappy in a lot of the games that I've seen him. But, you know, I guess in talking about unhappy, it is hard to think that Ronaldo is going to be at Man United next season, I think. It feels as though that particular project is exhausting itself. He too looks very unhappy.
Well, it's a complicated one with Ronaldo because you never truly know whether, going back to the start of the season, whether Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually wanted him in the first place, or if it went over his head and they just wanted to get him back both commercially and to just get him off City. So you know that Ronaldo at his age now is going to be more limited. He won't be able to be the modern striker, so to speak, in terms of dropping deep, affecting the build-up. So he's more of like just a finisher nowadays. And you can see that maybe that messed with Ole's plan, and then now with Rangnick in, it's just not clicking. I think once he becomes frustrated, it's a tough one to get him back on his happy side.
But it also drifts. No, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I think United's problem is kind of similar to ours in the sense that every time I watch a match of the day match on United, I hear the same sentence: "Oh, Ronaldo is so much older now. He's not the same young player he was back when you saw him in 2009." And I'm like, well, we know this. And the problem is they keep, similarly to how Imran's just highlighted the fact that, you know, we kind of bought Lukaku to solve pretty much all of our playmaking problems. For some reason, people keep expecting Ronaldo to solve all of United's playmaking problems. Like, United's midfield has been a problem for like years, and like all of a sudden people are shocked that Ronaldo doesn't have any service and they blame Ronaldo for it. And I'm like, to a certain extent you can understand why, but at the same time you can't solely blame Ronaldo for the lack of midfield at United.
Yeah, and I think the challenge there too is when he is unhappy, the team seems unhappy.
Yeah.
And that's the big factor for United at the moment, that an unhappy Ronaldo seemed to be kind of pulling down United as a team. So some big choices, but I will be surprised if he's there next season. But who knows, eh? Who knows? So overall, I think we can say that, you know, quite a few flops in the big transfer. But you couldn't get away from this story last weekend. Son and Kane, you know, a partnership that you guys have been watching for years now. What do you think? And what do you make of this new record?
I mean, it's weird. From a Premier League standpoint, I love watching these two. It's great. But from an FPL standpoint, I can't remember the last time I had either of these players in my team.
I had...
Because, like, I think with me, for the last... I know I fell for it last season, but I seem to consider it every season. Son,
right.
Every single season, he will have this 11-12 game streak where he has goal, assist, goal, assist, goal, assist, every game. And then the second that streak ends, you won't hear his name for the rest of the season. Wow. And you've got to judge yourself. Oh, are we on that streak yet? Oh, when is this streak going to end? Oh, I don't know when the streak is going to begin. And you've got to decide that for yourself. And then he always does this out of nowhere. And then I guess Kane last season was just incredible, and so I can't really speak to that. But this season is completely different. And so, from an FPL standpoint, I always struggle to get these two in my team. Plus, their price is a bit, yeah. But watching them in real life, man, it's like they're built. They literally complete each other's playmaking style. And as jealous as I was that they beat Lampard and Drogba's records, I have to say it is very admirable to watch them play. That I think was the fourth goal against Leeds with that Kane turn on the halfway line, which just it epitomises everything that they are. That's just a fantastic assist from Kane, the touch and the finish from Son. They're two fantastic players.
I agree. Right, Imran.
I think you think about some of the goals they combine to score and how they suit each other so much. It just makes you wonder how they just haven't won anything together. And I think it does come down to a bit what Carl said with there being a bit streaky players. So, for example, I think it is not always their fault because they've recycled a few managers since Poch, and obviously they haven't. The fans are unhappy with Daniel Levy about the backing they've got and the signings they've made. But it's a wonder how they haven't been able to be successful. So it is nice to watch because you know that realistically they're not going to combine to win any trophies because that's the Spurs way of things. But it has been an incredible partnership and they just suit each other really well with Kane dropping. It's a bit like Firmino and Salah, but obviously these two have been the main men at Spurs for 5-6 years now. So of course they've gone to another level.
And I think that's a really fabulous point that you've just made, because when I looked at this and I looked at the company that they've kind of, ascended past now, Perez and Henry, they're invincibles at Arsenal, tremendous partnership. But when you go through Perez and Henry, Silva and Aguero, Lampard and Drogba, they're as peers, they are all Premier League winners.
Yeah.
The problem for Kane and Son, they seem to lack a little bit of ruthless ambition. The fact that they're still playing for Tottenham, and no offense to those who support Tottenham, but look, these guys are not going to win anything at Spurs. This is a partnership that really should be pushing a team that is vying for the championship. They are that good. They really are a superb partnership. But sadly, the company that they've gone and taken over, when you look down that table, well, all of those other peers have won the Premier League.
It's interesting.
Other stuff.
Especially with Son more than Kane, it's like in a couple of years' time when both of these players have retired, it's like this record is probably the only thing either of them will be remembered for. I think obviously Kane has gone on with all his goal scoring records. He could probably break a few more depending on whether he picks himself up this season or next season. But Son, I can't think of anything else he'll be remembered for.
I think Son is a fantastic player. I really think he is. He's just in the wrong club. He's just in the wrong place. But it was a great record, and it was good to see them breaking it. And as you said earlier, the goal that brought the record was just is Son and Kane, and that's what they've been doing for ages. So look, the last time we ran our show, we were thinking about introducing the Golden Boot race, and looking back at this in terms of the people who were on it previously, they're nowhere to be seen now. Right? Yeah. So this look as though it's going in one direction, Imran.
Yep, of course. We just can't stop scoring this season. And I'm pretty sure in the preseason we're reaping the benefits of the effort we put in preseason, because I've read articles that due to the disappointment of last season, it wasn't just Van Dijk being out. The attack became fruitless with Mane and Firmino on such bad form. So they really hammered home in preseason on the attacking flows and movements. And, well, you can see the results for yourself. The top 3 goal scorers, all Liverpool players, and then you've got the best player in the world clear of the rest.
Is that what you're calling him?
Of course. It's hard to argue, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I think this is... I feel, given where we are now heading towards the running, that this is why I kind of think Liverpool might actually do it this season, because the players are in form and they're performing at a significant level every week, and they're dominating all of the stats that they need to, most goals, most assists. I was surprised to see that the only Man City player in this list is Sterling, and I was actually surprised that he's got 10 goals. He's crept up there, and I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised at Fernandes having 9, to be fair, but I guess that's kind of less surprising.
One of my Liverpool fans has just sent me a hand clap. He's just like you, Imran. He's happy to see those numbers there for the guys. But to be fair, I do think that where they are now, they're coming fairly strong, and the guys are playing some tremendous football every week. So, and Salah's 19. I know you. To be fair to you, though, you've been talking about him from the time we started the
Yep.
show at the beginning of
Day
this season.
one, like,
Well, even
it's-
at the start in the earlier shows, I was saying that last season he was showing glimpses of
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
his game to another level, but the rest of the team wasn't on par. And then from the first few weeks of this season, you can just see that the aura that he has is just different. The way he's dribbling, the way he's passing, the vision, and like he used to be criticised for being selfish. He's the joint top assister now in the league as well as having 19 goals.
Is that
He has,
Mane as well?
Mane's not there. I think it's Trent and Salah.
Oh
with
my goodness! But Trent is such a
11
baller,
assists.
man.
Yeah, Trent's just forgiven at the top there. You've seen that for the next decade or so now. But yeah, the fact that Salah has 11 assists to accompany those 19 goals is just outrageous. And some of the goals he scored, of course, next level.
Absolutely, and I think this is the difference between what will happen in the running. I just think that Liverpool have got the edge now. But if they stay fit and they continue to be as consistent as they have been, I think this Premier League is going to Anfield. But don't go and start celebrating, because I've said a few things on this show that have been absolute nonsense. So
Gone and jinxed it now.
Don't forget, we are still up against Pep City as well. Pep City, you never rule them out.
well, this is true, and you've got to go to their place as well. So
Exactly.
we will see how that one goes out. The other race, which is sadly, we also have to track the sack race, and I think a lot of the managers that we thought were going to get sacked actually got sacked.
Yep.
Right? From Steve Bruce to Nuno to Oli, all gone. And of course, last weekend we saw Bielsa. And to be honest, I really am surprised that it took Leeds so long
Yeah.
to sack him, because every week it's the same story. They play this very expansive open football. They concede lots and lots of goals, and it was inevitable.
And yet the fans are still unhappy at him being sacked. I was surprised to find that out. Yeah, I was looking at the reactions, and a lot of them wanted to keep Bielsa, maybe to give them a championship push, but I don't know. I think they should have done it earlier as well, because he's too stubborn in his ways. He's a great manager, but he's way too stubborn. Like, he just does not have the players to play the type of football he wants to. So you have to sometimes just take a step back, lose your morals or your footballing morals, and just play a deep block, be that team, and get a point, rather than go out and get hit for 6 or something like that.
Yeah, which Leeds seem to be, they have no problem with. But I don't know the new American coach, so we're gonna have to do a bit of digging around on him and feature him in one of our future shows. But we've introduced 4 new ones, 2 at risk and 1 probably likely.
Yeah.
I think the Rodgers project at Leicester is over. I think that Leicester squad is finished. It feels to me as though they've come to the end of the line, actually.
I agree to an extent. It does.
Go on, then.
It does kind of feel like his time at Liverpool, where he had the highest of highs, which was with Leicester getting 5th and being in the Champions League race, and now then they start like stagnating and dropping off like he did with Liverpool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this isn't Liverpool. This is Leicester. So Leicester fans do have to be careful what they wish for, because that being said, Leicester shouldn't. With the squad they have, they are lucky to be fighting for Champions League last season, and the fact that Rodgers was doing it is underappreciated. Just because they missed out in the end doesn't undermine their effort and the work that they put in to get to that situation in the first place. So I think they should give him the summer to try and rebuild this project, because he's done so much for the club. Because what other manager could you see pushing Leicester to get that Champions League spot? You see a lot of teams with stability, they don't realise how good they have it, and then they try and get something new and they drop off.
How long's he been at Leicester now?
Probably about 3 or 4 seasons. He hasn't been there that long.
2018, maybe. Yeah.
I thought it was this was his 3rd season.
He hasn't been there that long, but it feels to me like some of those players have reached the end of their cycle, and the squad needs a real freshening up, and they will probably go through a little bit of a churn now over the next couple of seasons, because they just don't seem to be competing. They just seem to turn up every game, and it doesn't feel as though the Rodgers' message is really getting through to them. You were quite adamant that we need to add Steven Gerrard on here as an at-risk, whilst we were saying, are you sure, Imran?
Well, I was just thinking, of course, he's not fully at risk of getting sacked, but it's just the fact that they are on pretty poor form, and it is concerning, because a lot of Villa supporters are questioning whether sacking Dean Smith was the right decision now that they see that Gerrard isn't really improving the results. But then again, you got to consider the fact that Gerrard will have the summer to improve, and
Well, you would hope that they would give him a season.
Yeah, of course, of
But
course.
these days, football doesn't necessarily fall on along those kind of lines. If he doesn't try and get some decent results towards the end of the season, he might not be there to get a season next season. But you just got to wait and see. And I guess Thomas Frank, we put in there because Brentford have gone off the ball completely.
Yeah.
I mean, when they beat Arsenal first day of the season, I was like, wow, wow. But they've also gone on to have some fairly good results, but it's gone flat. It's one win in 9, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
And it just feels like, wow, this is not good form. But I don't know. I think he might probably survive. But the guy above is
It's a
asking
weird
for the
one.
sack.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's to be the first manager on this sack race that is at risk of resignation rather than being sacked. Because some of the things he's come out and said in the media, it's just like he doesn't want to be there anymore already.
No, he's completely fed up. And that seemed to be a little bit of a trend with people who end up at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Jose
It
essentially
it
left
is a
as well,
trend with
didn't he?
Conte, actually. It is a trend with Conte. Like, after his second season, he normally does fall out with the board. It happened at Chelsea and it happened at Inter as well.
Well, he hasn't even got that far yet.
Exactly. He hasn't got to the 6 spot because he's with Tottenham.
He had a couple of games and realized that this is not for me. Poor fella. Wow. But we're going to keep watch on that. And as far as game week 27 team of the week, you picked the team this weekend, Bran. So
Yep.
give us the key highlights from it.
It's refreshing actually to have a team of the week because obviously Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea didn't play, so we have quite a few different faces in here. And I mean, we can quickly run through it. I think David Raya, even though they lost, I think Brentford had a man sent off, and Newcastle absolutely peppered Brentford for 90 minutes because I think Brentford's red card was in like the 9th minute. I think he faced 26 shots Raya did, and to only lose by 2 is actually somewhat of an achievement when your team concedes 26 shots. And I think he was still got man of the match despite them losing. Moving on to Walker Peters, I think Southampton are on really good form right now.
Fabulous.
And that's also why Ralph Hasenhuttl is my manager of the week, because the football, they've turned around and they stuck with him through the tough periods, and now his football's come back into it. He's got the squad back. Broyer's doing incredible. Yeah. Walker Peters, 2 chances created and 8 dribbles during the game, and he was incredible. Shaw as well. He's key to Newcastle's survival. I think he's probably their best centre back, and they were struggling in defence a lot. But Brentford, he got a clean sheet and he also chipped in with an assist. And then looking at Laporte, City v Everton, and City did dominate the game, but the fact that Laporte completed 110 passes with 100% pass accuracy,
wow,
which is outrageous.
Wow.
Like a really big number. And so if you had anything above 90% completion, it would be incredible. But 100% pass completion in a Premier League game is just insane. And then obviously Doherty, Spurs battered Leeds. I think Doherty got 2 goal contributions for a wing back, and the first signs of Doherty from Wolves, where
I thought he was going off the boil a little bit, but he came back quite strong in that game.
It was a Nuno signing, and obviously Spurs fans had turned on him, but he actually does have an opportunity because it's been lucky that the manager that's coming after Nuno also plays a 5 at the back and with right wing back, so Doherty could thrive in this situation. Souček got the winner for West Ham, and Fornals with him, I think, created like 4 chances. And Fornals actually is normally an attacking midfielder. He played left wing back. David Moyes played him left wing back, and it somehow worked. So hats off to him. And then the front 3, very exciting front 3. Michael Olise, we should actually do a segment about him in one of the next shows because I think he's one of the best young talents in the league. They've brought him from the Championship, and you just watch him play, and he's got that. You can just tell he's a very special player. I think a lot of big clubs would be disappointed that Palace had snapped him up because the chance creation, I think he's got one of the highest chances created per 90 in the Premier League, and that's for Crystal Palace, who haven't been great in terms of their strikers. They haven't got a set striker. And then Kane, we of course know, battered Leeds, him and Son with the partnership. And then Ryan Fraser has actually been key in Newcastle's surge up the table right now. I think he created 5 chances, and he's getting his Newcastle career back on track.
Yeah, and it's good to see actually that quite a few young players like Olise and Walker Peters are really I think they're really putting their stamp on the league this season, and it's very, very exciting. We've opted for game of the week, Kyle. The game that secured the exit for Bielsa.
Well, it's interesting that Imran put Doherty in his team of the week because I was actually about to speak about him. Because I remember when he was first signed for Spurs, I didn't personally, like, just in my personal opinion, I didn't think that was a very good signing at all. And then, Spurs went on and I didn't think he really fit in the team. And so I think he scored before he assisted. And I was surprised because I didn't realise he even started the game. So I was like, wow, Doherty, I'd forgot he was even at Spurs, to be fair. And in all fairness, like, he was outstanding. Probably one of the best performances I've seen in a long time. But, I mean, yeah, it was just a battering, to be honest. Like, Leeds... I'm not going to say Leeds played terribly, but they clearly, oh my goodness, they clearly didn't take the chances they had, man. It was
Well, they hit the
pitiful.
right about 3 times in the game.
Oh,
They had
gosh,
chances to score, and they were very high tempo when the game started. But Spurs just took the time and took them apart very methodically, and I felt you could see that Spurs could have probably scored more because of the openness of that particular game.
It was weird because it didn't look like that big of a tactical game, but Leeds just made it look like Spurs outclassed them. It wasn't the case, but it's exactly what it looked like.
I think Spurs, the scoreline actually flatters Spurs. They didn't like completely dominate Leeds. If you look at the graphic that we have there, the attacking threat, Leeds were on top for a large part of the game. And when I was checking the stats, I think Leeds had 20 plus shots, which is which is a really good performance. But then obviously they're really open. But it just came down to the fact that Spurs have Kane and Son and like proper good finishers, whereas Leeds have, I think, Dan James up front, and they're really missing Bamford.
Yeah. Well, he has not turned up this season due to injury, and I wonder how much of a difference that might have made actually to the whole Bielsa approach. Because last season they were fabulous, and I had Bamford in my team for lots of periods of the season. But this season, not having that attacking threat, but still being so expansive and conceding loads of goals, that has pretty much been why he has lost his job, because he just hasn't been able to keep them solid, and they just haven't been able to score. You can't, if you don't score goals, well, sadly, you know what will happen in football. So look, the next 6 games, we start with Liverpool. Imran, what's your take?
I mean, it's in the title race as big as it's really similar to the title race in the 18-19 season, Liverpool and City, and you just got to strive for perfection now. You've got to be professional and get 3 points in those West Ham, Brighton, Arsenal games. Arsenal away actually could be a thorn because Arsenal are in good form, and Liverpool at the Emirates in recent years haven't actually been great. I can only think of last season winning there, obviously this season in the cup, but last season winning there, and that was with no crowd. I think with the crowd, Liverpool haven't won against Arsenal since 16-17.
You're going to check that out in your head-to-head in a bit. Actually.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is true when Mane scored on his debut. But yeah, I think we had a few frustrating draws there. Then obviously you've got Liverpool v Manchester United, which is obviously on paper we'd expect to smack them, but then the fact that they're challenging for top 4, they could stop our title run, and it's just Liverpool v Man United. It's basically
tough games there.
Game. And then you look to the last one, which is very reminiscent of 18-19 at the Etihad, where Sané got the winner. I honestly think that game was the highest quality game of football the Premier League has ever seen.
One of the best Premier League games I've ever seen.
Like the quality, the tactical quality, the technical quality of that game was incredible, and I think we'll see something similar with all the stakes, because it's literally assuming that Liverpool and City are fairly equal. When it comes to that game, it'll be the title game.
So stick your neck out like a turtle then. How many points are you looking for over the course of these 6?
Ooh. I'm going to go with 15.
Wow. So
Yeah.
which one do you think you're going to drop?
I think maybe we could lose against Arsenal away.
That'd be great.
City away. And then or factoring in that we're maybe draw the 3 big games, because we have drawn a lot of those games stupidly in the earlier parts of the season. I'm thinking back to like Brentford when we were 3-0, when we were up 3 times and then got clawed back every single time. And City, we went 1-0 up, they equalised. We went 2-1 up in the 75th minute, they equalised 5 minutes later. So yeah.
Wow.
15.
Well, let's see, because had you been playing Brighton a little bit earlier in the season, I would say that's probably going to be a very difficult game. But I think things have moved on.
Yeah.
So with you then, Kyle, and Chelsea trying to get themselves back into some kind of Premier League rhythm after going across the world and doing everything else.
Yeah, that was one thing I was really impressed by Mendy in the League Cup. He's come playing week in, week out for the Prem. They went to AFCON, won AFCON, went to the Club World Cup, played in the final, then played in the League Cup and had that incredible game. It's really impressive how these players play like that. But in terms of these fixtures, like, I'm expecting a clean sweep off the board. The one thing that I'm focusing on in this chart is those 2 games in hand against Leicester and Arsenal. Like, I am terrified. I cannot explain how terrified I am for that Arsenal game. Because, like, the fact that we play, I think it's Manchester United in game week 37, has been in my mind since, like, December. Because, like, knowing we've got United then and Arsenal, who have like 3 or is it 2 or 3 games in hand?
Yeah.
3. We should get together and watch that game. I mean, it's scheduled.
Like, that game is absolutely massive for pretty much everybody between 3rd and 6th. Like, it's huge. And so whenever it is, whether it's before or after that United game, like, it's absolutely killer. But in terms of those 4 games that we've got in the next 4 weeks, I'm expecting like a win from all of them.
A clean sweep, and I tend to agree. But I think when we come to the bridge, we will be coming to stamp our authority. I think we're in good form. We've come back well. We look, I think in a couple of our earlier shows, Arteta was definitely on the at-risk list, and that period has passed. But I think when you go down here, there are quite a few tricky ones. There's some games that Arsenal, you think they should win. You might say Arsenal, Watford, we should be able to pull 3 points out of that relatively easily.
You got lucky in that Wolves game, man.
Those are the type of games where we are playing opposition who is really down the league that we just seem to struggle. I think Aston Villa will be very tricky for us as well, even though they don't always play very well at the Emirates, and I think we've battered them a couple of times there. And as you pointed out, Liverpool at Anfield, always a tough task, even though you probably say it's going to be a difficult game. I don't know. I think Liverpool are just in a different plane at the moment. So from this, I would be happy if we come out of this with wins against Palace, wins against Villa. Leicester can be tricky, but even if we get over them and maybe a draw at Anfield, I'll be happy. And Newcastle being very resurgent, I think can be a different Newcastle to the one that we've played early in the season. So I'm still hopeful, though, and I feel in a much better place for Arsenal than I did much earlier in the season. And I think we have it in our hands to get back into that top 4. So I'm quite excited about it, actually. So look, this is probably one for you, Kyle. With everything else that's happening in the world this week, with the war in Ukraine, it's found its way to the Premier League, and it has found its way to Abramovich, who has decided to sell up at Chelsea. And from a football perspective, we got to look at the impact that he has had on the league. So we've put all the managers there that we could find. I think he's had about 15. And he spent over 2 billion and they've won 21 trophies at the bridge. So what are your thoughts, Kyle? He's the only person that you've known in Chelsea that you've been following them.
There since my lifetime, really. So I am actually really worried, not going to lie, because I think Roman Abramovich is an incredibly good owner. And when you look at a lot of the aggression and the distaste for a lot of the top 6 owners, Chelsea fans like Roman a lot simply because of the amount that he's given to the club. Like he's really just given his heart. You can tell he loves the club, and that's something that we've really appreciated. And what worries me is that we're just going to get one of those like money-loving owners. No offense, Imran, but you very much have a money-loving owner, and that is it's not something that I want. And yeah, I mean. He's given us a lot of success. He's given to the club, provided us some fantastic signings, and I'm grateful, extremely grateful. And as much as I want to look forward to the future, I really, really will miss him.
And if you have to pick one of those managers from that, that distinguished list, and one of those players, who would have been the one you will pluck out?
I mean, for me, Drogba is one of the greatest strikers the Premier League has ever seen. Just period.
Agreed.
as a Chelsea fan, me and Imran always have this debate about Eden Hazard and how good a player he really was, but I love the guy, man. Like, he's a top player, man. I loved Eden Hazard. Would I take him back at Chelsea now? I think he's gone past his prime. But Eden Hazard at Chelsea is an absolute different breed of a player. I'm never going to forget that goal against Liverpool, man. What a player. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of managers, I don't want my current view of Tuchel to, remove my view of the rest of the managers. But for what Tuchel has done since he's come in, he's got to be my go-to manager of all of them, really.
Wow.
I mean, okay. I have a massive respect for Jose. It's probably one of those topics that, again, could be spoken about in a completely separate show about how Jose's tactics over the years have influenced football, and are they really still working? And I think he's in Italy now. But massive respect for a lot of the managers. But I think just the way Tuchel has come into this team, and he's given the club a massive amount of success. I think if we'd won the League Cup over the weekend, I think it would have been an easy decision. But you can see the way we're playing at the moment is just fantastic, and Tuchel has changed the way this club has thought. And to come in and just win the Champions League like that was special. We're never going to forget Di Matteo in 2012. That was joy.
Stop me from salivating, Imran.
I mean,
go ahead.
I think for my choices out of that list, I think you can't look past Jose Mourinho. And we're thinking of, don't let the current Mourinho, the last 5 years Mourinho, cloud your vision about how great of a manager he was. I mean, I wasn't exactly able to watch it. It was before my time watching football, but I know of the incredible effect he had on English football. It took English football by storm as a young manager. And I think some of the teams he built, the team he built that I think they conceded 19 league goals in the whole season. I think that's a record that's never ever going to be broken in the Premier League. I think they're going to hold that record for the rest of the Premier League as it exists, because the way he set up his team, and he was such a character he spearheaded that Chelsea charge to relevance again, really. And I think you can't look past Mourinho in terms of the league titles he won on 2 separate occasions as well. Obviously, the only downside to that being he couldn't get Chelsea a Champions League, which is interesting when you look at the fact that Di Matteo did in half a season.
Yeah.
And in terms of a player, I think, going back to that, John Terry, I think you'd have to say, the fact that his longevity with Chelsea and forming such a formidable defence with Chelsea over a decade. So I don't think you can look past JT.
Well, I deliberately excluded him because he wasn't one of the big expensive purchases. So that's why he didn't make the lineup. So
it's interesting because when I was thinking before the show, about the signings that Abramovich has made and the teams that we formed under him, I was when I was trying to think of the best keeper we've had, I was Cech, I think his achievements aren't really spoken about enough. I think we look at keepers these days, it's hard to choose. To appreciate keepers in this day and age, obviously the role of the keeper has changed so much in the last 10, 15 years, but that record, I think he owns the record for the most clean sheets in the Premier League, and it's just insane, the level of goalkeeper he was. The kind of shot stopper he was insane, man.
Yeah.
He was a keeper and a half.
I will tell you my two, because I like you, Imran, I will go back to Mourinho because I'm old enough to remember when he came to the Premier League in 2004, and it was a different time, and I think a black hair Mourinho with being very brash and really wanting to put it to Fergie and Wenger to break up that whole dynasty that was in existence then. It was tremendous what he was able to come into the league and do. And I would also pick from that list of players one that you guys probably never even knew about because you were in nappies at the time. The first person in that list there, a guy by the name of Claude Makelele, who was, oh man, we talk about N'Golo Kante now, and he's like the next generation of Makelele, who when it came to a defensive midfielder position was exceptional and really made that position his. People used to call it the Makelele position. He was that good. So him coming to Chelsea, and I think he won quite a few Premier Leagues as well in his time at Chelsea. was part of the dynasty that was started there. So for me, you can't look past Mourinho, and when you start to look at players who were really influential in this era that Chelsea went through as a championship winning club, Makelele for me is the person on whom they built a lot of that success. So look, let's bring it home then with the fixtures for this weekend. Which one's jumping out at you?
It's a pretty big week, to be fair. I mean, you've got obviously the Manchester derby is going to be the one that sticks out, but that Liverpool-West Ham game is huge for everybody involved. So, like, it's again back to that top six. David Moyes at West Ham, man, he's having a fantastic season. But whatever the result in that game literally affects everyone in the top six. So, like, if anything, controversial decision. That game was probably as or more important than the Manchester derby. Plus, you kind of expect City to run away with that Manchester derby, really.
Well, actually, all right, hang on, because that's a very interesting point. Because when you say that, I was really intrigued by that whole idea that the game is at City. You probably expect them to win quite easily, but I think
In recent years.
if you look at the head-to-heads, right? So if we look at, it's at City, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's City. Oh no, sorry. If we go for City at home against United,
Yeah.
interesting, because United have actually won the last two in terms of going into this particular fixture as the team who you would say, well, when City are at home, they're quite strong, but actually that hasn't been proven in the last two games at the Etihad. So I was really surprised when I looked at this and thought, well, I would expect City in form that they should be able to win it, because you never go to the Etihad and City are not in form.
Exactly.
So I was quite surprised. What do you think?
I think I saw a stat similar to this. I think City have only won one in the last 7 Manchester derbies at the Etihad, which is crazy to think about. I think that's what a derby is, even though City in all those meetings have, like, on paper been the much better team. A derby game, anything can happen with the passion high, and I think Ole really had the blueprint on how to beat Pep. I think he got the better of him a few times, and like you said, the last 2 appearances Manchester United have actually won. So you never know what can happen in a derby game.
Yeah, and United still lead by a long way in the head-to-head. So
I think that stems back to the history or lack of that. City have.
Of course, and perhaps we can look at the one that you mentioned earlier, actually, because you were talking about Liverpool at home, Liverpool West Ham.
Yeah.
Let's have a look and see what that head-to-head looks like.
I think at Anfield we are formidable, so it should be us dominating. But it is worth noting that West Ham beat us in the reverse fixture early in the season, so it is a potential for on the side. And obviously, the stakes are very high. Liverpool have got some fairly key injuries which could play a part, but so too do West Ham.
Yeah, and I think we can expect some goals from that particular game based on what we can see from the recent head-to-head. So it's quite an interesting weekend in coming up in City have. Somebody's here saying City have beat United once since 2004. Yeah. So you look at it and you think straight away, yeah, City are in form, they'll batter United, but actually the stats don't necessarily bear that out. So will be an interesting one to see how that one plays out when we get back together and start to reflect on that particular game. So then let's finish up by looking at the table, which will again make for interesting reading for those of us who are following the Arsenal. We've got three games in hand, and in some cases 2 games in hand on some of the teams above us.
Of all that top 6, can we creep? Nah, not really going to put Spurs in there. I think we've got the most top 6 sides to play, I think. Plus Leicester, which is a bit of a game. So
Wow,
you look at the Go ahead.
I didn't even realise Leicester were in 13th. With their form as well, lost, draw.
I thought they were in 14th, to be fair.
Man, this is why Rodgers is at risk.
Yeah.
They are struggling, and they just seem to be in a little bit of a rut at the moment that they can't find themselves out of. And the loss of Jamie Vardy, I think, has really affected their season. So they haven't won a game.
Though, didn't he?
They haven't won a game in a long time.
Vardy has literally just come back, and I think he came off the bench and scored a goal and assist to win the game v Burnley. So him being back could fire them to a good end
Yeah,
to the
well, it could. But if you look at the team below them,
yeah.
not too long ago, their record was all L's and red. And
You have to say that Leicester do have 2 games in hand.
And they've turned it
No,
around.
I know that doesn't say much.
they do, but they're
they
not
do
in
still
good
have
form,
to.
man.
Yeah.
They're not in good form. But
Yeah.
of course, we can't get away from the fact that second place Liverpool, Imran, are the form team in the league at the moment, and this is why I feel they have got this in their hands now. It's in their hands.
I think a constant of the season has been the attacking trio, there's 5 of them now with Diaz added as well and Jota. Been on ridiculous form, but some of the times the midfield and the defense let us down at the start of the season. But now we're seeing prime Van Dijk back. I think it took him the first half of the season just to get going again. He was in bar,
Supreme.
one less gear. He's put it into the next gear, and now he's just unstoppable again. Man of the match.
Tell
in
you
the
what,
Champions
man.
League, man of the match in
That
the league.
Joel
final.
Matip,
He looks back. Don't get me started on Joel Matip. I think Joel Matip. Yeah.
So that is the table as we head into game week 38 and
28.
Well, not 38. 38 will be the end of the season. If it was 38, Imran would be crying.
Yeah.
28 as we head into the running, the last 10, which is going to be quite an intriguing. So look, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the football show. We will be back next week with the next edition, and I hope that you've enjoyed spending some time with us. So we will catch you on the next one. Take care and bye for now.
See you next week.